It's Demon Dentist time again. We are on chapter 24, The Darkest Hour. The plan was underway. It was still early, but Alfie was in his pyjamas and ready for bed. He placed Raj's tooth under his pillow. Tonight, he didn't need any prompting from Dad that it was his bedtime. As soon as darkness fell, Alfie went straight to his room. No one knew what time this someone or something would strike and snatch the tooth. It just had to be dark, and it was dark already. Real winter dark. There was now one big problem with Alfie's plan, though. How on earth was he going to stay awake all night? Winnie had scoffed every last coffee revel. There were plenty of other methods for staying awake, but none of them seemed foolproof. Put matches between your eyelids to keep them open. That's an option. Drink gallons of water and then don't go for a wee before bed. There's the matchsticks in the eyes, look, and all the water. Slap yourself hard in the face every minute. That could work. Leave the window wide open. It will become so cold you will shiver and icicles will grow from your nose. Picture your least favourite teacher and then try and think of 10 things you like about them. It's impossible. Give yourself the mother of all Chinese burns. The pain will keep you awake. Get out of bed every 5 minutes and do a rhythmic gymnastics routine. Ball or ribbon will do. Lie in bed in an awfully uncomfortable position. Alfie climbed into bed and he blew out the flame on the candle he was holding. As he lay there, he realised he didn't need any of those tricks to stop him from falling asleep. He'd never felt so wide awake in his entire life. At first, the night seemed still and quiet, but soon every little sound, even the tiniest creak or rustle, filled his mind with fear. It could be them. It could be them. It could be them. Shadows began to dance on the walls. Were these nothing more than silhouettes of trees illuminated by the headlights of passing cars? Or perhaps they could be something more sinister. It could be them. It could be them. It could be them. Alfie kept sliding his hand under the pillow to check the tooth was still there. It was. Who or what was going to try and come into his room? And how would they try and snatch the tooth? Lying there in the dark, his imagination started to run wild. Soon it was hard for Alfie to distinguish between what was real and what was in his mind. Was he lying in bed awake, or was he actually asleep and simply dreaming he was awake? Hours passed. Or was it minutes? It was impossible to tell. Now outside Alfie's window there wasn't a sound. Not a bird singing, not a plane in the sky, not even a distant car. This truly was the darkest hour. He slid his hand under his pillow once more. The tooth was still exactly where he'd left it. Just then Alfie heard something rustling in the bushes outside. It could be a bird or a squirrel or even a rat. But no, the sound was too loud. This was something bigger. There was silence for a moment. Then, as quick as lightning, a shadow loomed outside the window, blocking out the yellow glow from the street lamps entirely. It was horrifying. Suddenly facing the terror alone seemed like a catastrophic mistake. Alfie was frightened, dead frightened. Next, he heard the window slide open. Then the worn and bedraggled curtains were drawn aside as the figure climbed into his room. Alfie wanted to cry out, but his mouth was dry with fear, and he couldn't make out a sound. Soon the shape was plodding slowly towards him. Alfie's plan was to pretend to be sleeping, let the tooth be stolen and sneak a look at the perpetrator as they left. However, this plan was unravelling and fast. Alfie was in such a panic now there was no way he could keep still. His whole body was trembling with terror. It was fight or flight. The figure closing in on him, there was nowhere to run. To fight was the only option. Alfie leapt out of bed. He charged towards the figure, making wild circles in the air with his fists and cried, "Ah!" Chapter 25. Under the pillow. "Ah!" shouted the figure before adding, "Please, please don't hurt me." It was the unmistakable voice of Raj. Alfie lit the candle by his bed with a match and brought it closer to the shadowy shape. It was the unmistakable face of Raj. The panic over, Alfie swallowed hard and croaked, "Raj, what on earth are you doing here?" "You frightened me," exclaimed the newsagent. "You frightened me more," replied the boy. "Well, I think you frightened me more." "No, you actually frightened me more." No, you definitely 100% can frighten me more," protested Raj, "and no returns." There was little point in arguing with the man. The newsagent was well known for being frightened easily. Local gossip had it he once ran out of his shop screaming after he swore he saw one of his 2p jelly snakes moving. All right, conceded Alfie. "But I thought you were, the tooth snatcher." "I'm not," replied Raj. "My name is Raj and I am your newsagent." "Yes, I know who you are," said the boy, exasperated now. "But what are you doing here?" At that moment, what seemed like a huge gust of freezing cold air came in through the window. It blew the candle out. "It's dark in here," whimpered Raj. "It's okay, just let me find my matches." Alfie groped by his bedside table, which was really just an upturned milk crate, and lit the candle. Now his bedroom felt decidedly chilly, so he moved over to the window and closed it. Feeling more than a little spooked, he locked it too. "Well, I was lying in my bed above the shop and I couldn't help worrying about you, all alone, waiting for this." Raj struggled to find the right word. He settled on thing. "Well, that's kind of you, Raj, but honestly, I was fine," lied Alfie. "It must be the middle of the night now, and there's been absolutely no sign of anything. And my tooth is still under your pillow." "Oh, yes," said Alfie, moving over to the bed. "I put it just here, look." But when the boy lifted the pillow, the tooth wasn't there. Something else was. Something horribly horrible. Something dreadfully dreadful. An eyeball. The long silky nerve at the back was still attached. It was flailing around as if it were a tail, making the eyeball twitch and wriggle on the mattress like a tadpole on dry land. "Ah!" screamed Raj. Alfie, who, as we know, thought of himself as being a tiny bit braver than the newsagent, screamed too. The boy's scream was even louder. There's the boy finding that eyeball. "It's an eyeball," screamed Raj. "I know," said Alfie. "But it's an actual eyeball." "Yes, but let's all try and stay calm," said the boy. "This is a clue." Alfie slowly and steadily brought the candle down to examine the eyeball. It was unusually large. It has to be the size of a ping-pong ball. The eyeball had to be from a large animal, or perhaps a giant. Just then the eyeball turned and looked straight at him. "Ah!" screamed Alfie. "Ah!" screamed Raj. "It looked at me," spluttered the boy. "It looked at me straight in the eye." Thump, thump, thump. Someone was banging on the wall. Raj screamed again and tried to leap into Alfie's arms. "That's my dad in the next room." "Oh, sorry," said the newsagent, trying to calm himself. His nerves were shot to pieces. "I always leapt into my mother's arms whenever I saw a mouse." "Well, you are too heavy." "I know. Mother told me that when I tried to do it last week." Alfie looked up at the newsagent, utterly incredulous. Thump, thump, thump. Dad was banging on the wall again. Son, are you all right?" He coughed and spluttered from the next room. "Just coming, Dad." Alfie rushed out of his room and down the corridor to his father's bedroom, the petrified newsagent trailing close behind. "Raj?" asked Dad, really quite bemused. "Ah, hello, Mr. Griffith," said Raj brightly, pretending that being in the man's bungalow in the dead of night was perfectly normal. "Look, if it's about the newspaper bill, I've been meaning to," began Dad. Raj smiled. "My friend, the newspaper bill has long been forgotten." "So what are you doing here?" asked Dad. Raj looked over to Alfie. Dad followed his gaze. Suddenly, all eyes, well, apart from the one in the next room, was staring at him. "Well," said Dad, "I think it's about time you told me the truth, my lad." My lad was something Dad only called Alfie when he'd done something wrong. Alfie knew that. He took a deep breath. It was finally time to tell his father the whole story. That's it for now.